Lessons from books, Hans-Hermann Hoppe's Democracy, The God That Failed Us. We'll just take a small idea from it, the state versus the family, expand upon it. I would love to go into more of the book, but it's too risky, it's too radical. Check it out. Just be careful with that book. Subscribe, share, like the video. So the welfare state represents egalitarianism. The family unit represents anti-egalitarianism. No, I'm a family and I believe, no, you don't. The welfare state believes in this equality of outcome, equity, levelizing society, bringing those up, smashing those down, taking resources, the collectivization of resources and responsibility to create this equal society. Well, I believe we should have... Yeah, I understand that you believe in helping some people out, but you don't believe in the equality of property. You might believe in equality of rights and equality under the law, but you do not believe in equality of property. No, look at your neighborhood. There are houses, there are yards, there are fences, there's cars, there's garages. All of those represent anti-egalitarianism. All of those represent an inequality. Not everyone has the same stuff, and everyone has the right to exclude people from their property. Welfare state, egalitarianism, you can't exclude. Everything's got to be shared. It's a collectivization. Anti-egalitarianism, you can exclude. You don't have to share. It is yours. If you don't believe me, don't do this, but you could. Walk through the neighborhood, go in someone's house. It's probably locked. You've been excluded, but if by chance it's not locked and you're able to get in, good luck. See what happens. Find out if your neighbors are egalitarian or if they're anti-egalitarian. Take it a step further, walk up, go upstairs, and get into the bed, Goldilocks. See how that works out for you. You'll find out really quickly if the traditional family unit is egalitarian or if it's anti-egalitarian. If it was egalitarian, they'd say, oh, let us tuck you in. Oh, great. I can't wait to share all of our stuff with you. But they don't. We don't share our property. We don't share our house. We don't share our yards. We don't share our cars. We do not share our paycheck. When you get your paycheck, you don't go door to door and say, look, here's your share, here's your share. No, it goes into your bank account, and you have the right to exclude other people, and you have the right to exclude the welfare state from your property. So that is kind of the why. Let's talk about the how this war takes place. So there is the indoctrination part of the welfare state. It is not a literal brainwashing. Please don't see this and say, this crazy guy thinks that the government is literally brainwashing people. No, I don't. But there is a subtle message, and it may not even be that subtle. Well, what's wrong with equality? There is nothing wrong with equality under the law. There is nothing wrong with equalization of rights. But that's not where the government and its socialized education stops. The diversity, inclusion, equity gospel is in the schools. It is being taught. What do they mean by equity? They don't mean equality under the law. They don't mean equality of opportunity. They mean equality of outcome. They mean equalization of property, egalitarianism, which is not what you, your family, and your neighbors believe in. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any fences. Our houses wouldn't be separate units. They'd all be attached, and we live in just one giant dome where we all held hands and danced around. But we don't. We live in our separate houses with our separate rooms, with our separate cars, our separate property, our separate jobs, because we are anti-egalitarian, whereas the welfare state wants the equalization, wants us all together. But that's not the big picture. What we want to look at is how the institutions themselves, the programs themselves, divide, break up, and destroy the family over the last half century. Forget about the indoctrination or the subtle message of egalitarianism. What I want you to think about is the specific programs that, whether you know it or not, have been designed, whether intended or unintended, to destroy the family unit. We'll start with Social Security. You'll probably think on the surface, great program. When you're old and you need to retire, money is given to you. You pay into the system. It doesn't really matter how much you pay into it, really. When you're old, you can't work, you can't support yourself, so Big Daddy government comes in and takes care of you. Most people are going to say, yeah, that's a good program, we need this. Well, the reality is, until the last century, this program didn't exist. Until the last century, there was no old age insurance. The government did not bail you out. So how did we get... what did the elderly ever do? How could they survive if there wasn't Big Daddy government to take care of them? Well, think about it. How did previous generations, for thousands of years, how did they insure against old age? There wasn't insurance agencies. There wasn't Social Security. So how do you insure? You know someday you're going to get old. So what do you do? How do you plan for that? Well, it's very simple, and it worked for thousands of years. It's called have a family. It's not that difficult. Have a family. Someday you're going to get older and you're going to need someone to take care of you. There was never this idea of big daddy government taking care of you. So who else is going to do it? Maybe your kid. Oh, you want better insurance than that? Have 2 kids. How about 3 kids? Maybe 4, 5, 6. And you wonder, why did families used to be so big? Because they were insuring against old age. Look at the developing world. They shouldn't have so many kids. They're going to overpopulate. The reason that they're having kids is it's insurance against old age. When you get older, your children will take care of you. That's how it works. But not only that, it forces families to stay together. It forces families to bond. It forces communities to bond. You can't run out on your kids. Like, if there's no Social Security and you run out on your kids, they ain't going to take care of you. If there's no Social Security and you run out on your wife, she is not going to take care of you. It forces people to learn to get along, to love each other, to reach compromises, to realize you can't always get what you want, to be responsible, to be respectful. You learn all of these in a society where big daddy government doesn't take care of you. When you live in a society with Social Security, you don't need your family anymore. You don't have to have kids, first of all. And if you do have kids, you don't have to treat them well. And guess what? You don't have to treat your wife well because kick her to the road. I don't need your financial support. I got big daddy government to take care of me. And so you see, since the implementation of Social Security and the social welfare state, illegitimacy rates through the roof, divorce rates going up because the government allows for this. Whether they intended this to happen, that doesn't matter because we know that it happens. The government's going to bail you out for bad choices. The government's going to bail you out for being selfish. The government's going to bail you out for being irresponsible. Whether they intended to do this or not doesn't matter because this is the result. Let's look at another program. So welfare state, score 1 for them. It's going to be a bunch of goals. If you are a bad kid and you choose the bad things and you have pathogenic behaviors, you make a lot of mistakes. Well, in the traditional family unit, which has existed for thousands of years, you had to cut it out. You had to curb those behaviors in order for your parents to take care of you. If you're going to live under my house, you're going to follow my rules. You got to be respectful. You got to be responsible. You got to follow the law. And thus, I will provide shelter for you, clothing, food, whatever it needs. It's a transaction. It's a free market. If you aren't willing to do that, then hit the road. But if you're willing to follow these basic rules, then the parents will take care of you. And through this, the parents then can curb behaviors of children. Children can be really bad. But through this, kids need the parent. And the kids come to the realization that, all right, this is the best bargain I'm going to get. I'm just going to have to learn to be a better person. I'm going to learn to be responsible. I'm going to have to grow and mature. For example, the kid wants to go to college, but the kid's misbehaving, breaking rules, doing whatever he wants. Well, who's going to help him through college? Well, mom and dad are not going to help you through college unless you follow the rules and you straighten up. But if you straighten up and you're responsible, you start doing your homework, you start going to school, we will help you go to school. We will support you. And so through this system, we curb bad behaviors. We remove them. We create an incentive for responsibility. We incentivize good behaviors. But under this system, instead, we have Big Daddy welfare state stepping in and saying, no, that's a lot of work. You got to be responsible. You can't sleep in every day. You got to do homework. You can't do what you want. Forget that. I get it. Like, if you do all these things, your parents in return will help you out. But listen to this deal from the social welfare state. If you do absolutely nothing, minus filling out this paperwork, we'll give you the loan. You don't have to start being a good student. You don't have to study. You don't have to be responsible. You don't have to be disciplined. You can keep all of your bad behaviors, all of your unpreferred behaviors. Keep them all. Doesn't matter. We'll give you the money, and we actually aren't even going to tell you how you have to spend most of that. Again, the welfare state is providing an alternative, a much easier alternative that divides the family from the children. Forget about the indoctrination. Look at these programs. The programs create incentives to destroy the family, to break away from the family, make the kids dependent on the state forever. Join us. When you have a child as a teenager, hopefully you never do this, probably get kicked out. Maybe not. So in the traditional family unit, that might be the case, that if I get pregnant, my parents are going to kick me out. That is the punishment. That is the consequences to this poor decision. So I better not get pregnant. There are consequences. And so that's a disincentive. I'm going to change my behavior. I'm going to change my behavior to make sure that I don't have a child. Thus, over time, we'll have less teenage pregnancies. Not so fast, because if you get pregnant and you're worried, oh, my parents going to kick me out, that's a huge disincentive. Well, guess what? Big Daddy Government will slide in again and say, don't worry, we'll give you a place. Now, we are not arguing that teenage mothers should be thrown out on the street. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that we are now creating, and maybe not an incentive, but we're definitely subsidizing an unpreferred behavior. We're subsidizing teenage pregnancy. And when you subsidize something, you get more of it. There are no consequences to this poor choice. Before, there were consequences. You're thrown out, you have to survive. Now, if you make this poor choice, no punishment whatsoever. You get your own free place. So again, we're separating families. You got kicked out of your house, don't worry. We got free housing for you. Let's look at it another way. Let's say that your parents are very forgiving and say, it's all right. Stay here though. We'll help you out, but you got to follow our rules. Wrong. You don't need to follow their rules. You don't need to live with mom and grandma and dad and have to follow their rules. You're a mother. You're independent. Come on over. We've got free housing for you. And again, we have a government institution of the social welfare state dividing, separating the family. And now you have a pregnant mother who is dependent on the egalitarian welfare state. The mother is dependent on this egalitarian life because her life is being supported through this egalitarian system. Money's coming from others' private property, going into the welfare state and supporting her. So she obviously is going to embrace the welfare state. Love the state. Well, how is her child? Her child is not going to be taught the traditional, exclusionary, private property, anti-egalitarian beliefs. Her child is going to be raised under the idea of egalitarianism, of equality, of collectivization of responsibility, collectivization of resources and finance. And then you get generation after generation of the welfare state. Last 60 years of this, in fact. So the welfare state seems like it's pretty much already taken over. Somehow, though, as doomed, he's like, oh no, the welfare state. As worried as you may be, when you walk down the street, you still see private property and private homes that you know that you can't go in. You know you can't get in someone's car. You know you can't walk into somebody's store and take their goods. As strong and powerful as the welfare state has become over the last half century, we still, whether we realize it or not, we still are anti-egalitarian. We still believe what is mine and what is yours. And I can exclude you from mine and you can exclude me from yours. We still believe in that. As big as the welfare state gets, and as big as equity and this egalitarian push grows, this equalization, equality of outcome, as much as we hear it on TV, as much as we hear the messages in the schools, it still does not resonate enough that we don't knock down the walls of our homes. We don't leave the keys in our car and say, yeah, go ahead, you take it for a ride. Let's look further, though. There are no solutions, only trade-offs. If you still support the welfare state, that is fine. It is absolutely okay to support the welfare state. It is absolutely okay to be socially liberal. It is okay to believe that we need to help those in need. But there are two thoughts that you have to keep at the same time. You cannot just pretend that this is the only thing that's happening. Oh, well, we're supporting people, so there's a little bit of a redistribution of property, okay? So there's more to it. If you are going to accept this, that is okay. But please understand the big picture. Understand the trade-offs, as Thomas Sowell would tell you. Well, what are the trade-offs to this program? What are the trade-offs to the welfare state, the egalitarian principle, the equalization of property? Well, first, as we've already talked about, it incentivizes unpreferred behaviors. It allows you to do bad things. It allows you to do unproductive tasks. First of all, teenage pregnancy. Teenage pregnancy is subsidized, so you get more teenage pregnancy. Also, not saving any money. I didn't save any money. I guess I'm going to die. Nope, the government will take care of you. All right, well, then why ever save? A lot of these choices that are not really beneficial to human beings are subsidized. They're taken care of. People are bailed out for them, and thus there's no consequences. And if there aren't any consequences, people will continue to make these bad choices. People will continue to develop these unpreferred behaviors, non-productive behaviors that don't help society. Another example is that when you're always bailed out, when there are no consequences, when you're not forced to be responsible, when you're not forced to learn discipline and structure and respect under the traditional family unit. When you don't learn that, you're perpetually an adolescent. You just become a big child. You're always dependent of the welfare state. You don't learn lessons. You don't learn from mistakes because you're always bailed out. You're always getting a trophy. You never have to suffer. You become weak. You become soft. And you do not grow. You need to struggle. You need to be anti-fragile. You need the family unit to put you in your place and to teach you the lessons for the good in the end. But we don't get that in the welfare state. We don't learn from mistakes. We're always bailing people out because we're always sympathetic. We're always feeling empathy for people. But sometimes people need to struggle. People need to suffer to get strong and to get better. And then also the unintended consequence. You want to support the welfare system? Great. But understand that when you support the welfare system, you're also creating a culture of dependence. When you support the welfare system, it's okay. But realize that you are creating programs that divide families. You want to support the welfare system? It's fine. But you also have to accept that you're subsidizing unpreferred behaviors. You're subsidizing teenage pregnancy. You're subsidizing people's unwillingness to save. You got to understand the trade-offs. Quick lessons from books at The State versus the Family, Hans-Hermann Hoppe's Democracy, the God That Failed. A lot of interesting things in this book. I would love to go deeper into it. Too radical, too risky. Please subscribe, share, like the videos.